Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 7 of What If Naruto Was Hybrid Devil Prince. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 8 of it, comment down below, and let me know. The like goal for this video is 200 likes. So like this video, to let me know that you're interested in this series, and you want the next part. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. There was a horrible smell in the ORC club room as Rias arrived back with Kiba in tow. It was a combination of burnt flesh and hair mixed with the iron tang of blood. Rias quickly held her hand up to her face, pinching her nose closed as she pushed the door open and peeked inside. 3 figures sat there. First was Akeno, who was sipping at a glass of tea, and had apparently returned from her trip early. Not that she was all that surprised. Usually Queen didn't waste time when going on errands to the underworld. Next was Issei, who was looking like someone had whipped him, dipped him in tar, and lit him on fire. All in all, not a pretty sight. Rias wrinkled her nose in disgust despite her fingers holding the passage shut and stepped fully into the room. Her sandwich analogy from earlier apparently needed amended. A very burnt ham sandwich indeed. And lastly, there was a pretty blonde girl sitting on the couch across from Akeno, also drinking tea. She was short, looking to be no older than 14. Her hair was long, forming 2 long drills on either side of her head. And Rias recognized her immediately. Her disgust increased. Babel Phoenix, to what do I owe this honor? The 4th child of the Phoenix clan turned to look at her, had to look at Rias. An expression which compressed pity and distrust distorted her features. I was sent by my dear brother with a message. He usually would come himself, but he is busy getting ready for the wedding. Ravel informed her. He wishes that you understand the schedule for the upcoming ceremony. The schedule? Yes. There has been a slight change in plans. We will be hosting the marriage at the Gremory Castle instead of the Phoenix estate. Rias frowned, not knowing why such a change was made. That's not exactly a small shift. May I ask why? Of course. There was an accident of sorts at my home, and we find ourselves unable to host a large gathering. The Lord Gremory graciously offered to host the ceremony himself, and my father accepted. Thus the change in venue. What does it matter where we do it? Rias all but growled. Your brother knows how I feel about this deal. As do both our families. Regardless. Because the preparations for the wedding were already nearly completed at the Phoenix estate, there needs a slight delay in plans. Originally the ceremony was set to take place 2 weeks from today. However, the Lord Gremory expressed a desire to prepare an even grander ceremony than was to be done at my home. Therefore the date has been moved up to 3 weeks from then, to give enough time to prepare. Rias stared at Ravel for a long time, one thought spinning through her mind. 5 weeks. There's no way it could take that long to prepare. My family has hundreds of servants. My father is stalling for something. You do understand this much, Rias Gremory? She's scared. Why wouldn't I? What else is there? Well, my brother would like to arrange to trade one of his pieces to you. He what? Ravel scowled slightly. Please don't make me repeat myself, Rias-san. Then be blunt, please. Rias sneered. Does Riser want to give me one of his pieces for a while, so that he can keep an eye on me? Does he think I'm that stupid? He sees me as a piece of me, and I have no interest whatsoever in taking any gift from him. It's not optional. Excuse me. The blonde-haired girl stood, crossing her arms over her chest. My brother wishes you to see this as a gesture of good faith, so to speak. If you refuse to take what is offered, I'm sure I can go to Lord Gremory and extend the offer to him. Rias glared down at the girl for a long moment, debating whether or not she could do it. This was obviously a plan by Riser to make sure she didn't try to get out of the wedding somehow. Whoever this girl was, she'd be loyal to her fiancé, not her. Damn it, if she goes to my father, then it would be even worse. He's already annoyed with everything I've done to delay the wedding. If I do anything now, he'll take it personal. Fine. Rias spoke calmly, smiling ever so slightly. I'll trade one of me free pieces for whoever he's trading to me. But make no mistake. I want Riser to know I take his gift under protest. As you wish, Gremory. Ravel snapped her fingers, and a magic circle appeared beside her. It was a golden yellow that flashed with flame as it descended to the floor, leaving sparks in its wake. Rias frowned as she recognized Riser's second rook standing there respectfully. This is Shulin, if you didn't know her name already. She is a kung fu expert and can utilize fire in her attacks. I hope she will serve you well for the duration of her stay in your peerage. Now I have other business to attend to. I hope you will pardon me, Gremory. Rias scowled as Ravel shot an angry glance over her shoulder at Issei. And you should learn how to discipline your servants, Rias. I'll keep that in mind, now leave. As you will. Ravel snapped her fingers again, and she disappeared in a plume of fire, leaving Shulin alone with Rias. Almost as soon as the light from Ravel's teleportation circle disappeared, the girl bowed deeply. Her voice held a servile, somewhat mocking tone as she spoke. Riser-sama has sent me to act as your rook, Rias-sama. I hope I will serve you well. Rias' eye twitched. Well, you can start by going on a little mission with Akeno. Shulin tilted her head in curiosity. Already? Yes. She turned to Keno. Why are you back so early? The queen merely pointed discreetly at the table where a small box lay. Ryuz glanced at it, noting the Gremory seal overlaid on the top. She frowned slightly. Is that what I sent you for? Keno nodded. And a little extra. Your brother said something about a gift, just in case something happened. Something? He wasn't specific, but he seemed pleased about something. Keno gave a minimalist shrug. About what I couldn't say. There was a glint in his eye though. Ryuz sighed and moved across the room to pick up the box. She absently pushed some of her power into it, hearing the faint click. She opened it. Almost immediately her eyes widened. A static seal. I haven't seen anything like this since I visited the Astaroth estate years ago. I think my brother has one of these though. They're extremely rare and rather hard to make. I wonder why he sent me one. And what's this? A letter. She reached inside and removed the letter, opening it quickly and scanning down the note. Here it is. I hope this finds you soon. Some things have come up recently, and I may have found a way to get you out of your engagement. This is important. Do not do anything suspicious to alert anyone if you are in bad company as you read this. Ryuz stiffened momentarily and glanced to the side, where Shulin was examining the ORC room with mild interest. Her attention returned to the letter. An old friend of mine came to the castle the other day, and we found a way to get you out of marrying Riser. That being said, you would still be marrying someone else. My only consolation is that this other young man would be far better for you. I know his mother and father well, and he is from one of, if not the most prestigious devil family. With that in mind, please do as instructed if you wish to get out of marrying Riser. She bit her lip and turned the note over. This will require a bit of acting on your part, Ryuz. You will have to pretend that you have known this other young man for a while. What I and his mother have in mind is a Romeo-Juliet kind of story. Since the prior arrangement is entirely based upon uniting two strong houses and producing pure-blood children, both of you will pretend to have been meeting each other secretly. It has been 6 months since father told you about the arrangement, so you need at least 7 months of fabricated evidence to suggest the two of you have been seeing each other. I know this will be very difficult, but do your best. Also, I sent you my static seal. Inside is everything you could possibly need to know about your new prospect. I suggest you study up on him. One last thing, we don't know where he is right now, so I've done my best to delay the wedding until we can find him. Okay, that's it, got to go. P.S. Burn the seal when you're done. Don't worry, I can get a new one from Ijuka. Ryuz closed the letter and replaced it in the box, reapplying the seal to make sure only she could open it. She handed it to Kiba. Put this in my bedroom. Keno, Shulin, your job is to search out the fallen angels in the area and capture them if possible. Bring them back to me if you can. If not, return and the rest of the peerage will come to your aid. Keno closed her eyes briefly and set her tea down on the table. Then she rose. Shall we go, Shulin-san? Shulin bowed slightly again. As you wish, Ryuz-sama. She turned to Keno. Yes, we should go. The two of them vanished using the Gremory magic circle this time, leaving Ryuz alone with Issei as Kiba had gone to her bedroom. Happing watched her for a long moment before he let his head fall back with a groan. What did you do, Issei? He sighed. That lowly girl burned the crap out of me. I didn't ask what she did to you. That much was obvious. I asked what you did in order for her to burn you. I know Ravel Phoenix. She usually isn't vindictive as that. You must have done something to piss her off. Issei's head snapped back up. I couldn't help it, alright. When she was bound to Keno, asking if she could see you, I just had to get in a little feel okay. Is that so wrong? Her ass was just so squeezable, you know. Ryuz grimaced. You copped a feel on the only daughter of the Phoenix clan. So what? He muttered dejectedly. It wasn't even that good. I prefer Keno-senpai. And she hardly even had breasts. Issei. Yes, President. Go get cleaned up. You're on flyer duty until further notice. Ryuz pointed to the corner of the room where a massive stack of papers seemed to magically appear. Get to it. And if you grope another guest without my express permission, I'll let a Keno use you for target practice. Don't complain either. You're lucky Ravel didn't turn you into a pile of ash. Aw, man, this sucks. Issei groaned and stood up, brushing the ash from the fringes of his clothes. Just get going. Remember that your actions reflect back on me. What you do in this room generally wouldn't hurt me, but groping a fellow high devil, never do that again. I'm serious, Issei. He nodded slowly and left the room. Once he was gone, Ryuz let her scowl fade. After a few moments, a broad smile made her lips quirk upwards. So, you came through for me. Thanks, brother. Ryuz quickly walked through the room to the back and opened the door to her bedroom. Kiba, I need something important from you. The blonde blinked where he had just been about to leave the room. Huh? What do you need, President? I want you to start a rumor. A rumor? Ryuz nodded, smiling. Yes, a rumor. Naruto scratched his chin thoughtfully. He was in a rather interesting position, if he did say so himself. For currently he was sitting with his back against a tree in the forest surrounding Kuo Town, with none other than Kaneko sitting in his lap. The diminutive Nakamata had been there for a while as he explained his plans to her. It had started out, he supposed, with the odd attraction. He personally didn't know all that much about her kind. Sure, he was a literal font of information when it came to Kitsune Yaokai, but Nakamata, and especially her particular race, were largely a mystery to him. That's why, when Kaneko sat down in his lap without any warning, and silently demanded petting, he was caught off guard a bit. Maybe it was the fact that she was getting to the age when Nakamata found their ideal mate. He did know that Nakamata made it earlier than most Yaokai, somewhere around their 14th or 15th year. And he did have an awfully powerful energy signature, and his chakra was potent too. Her instincts might see him as quite the catch. But what he didn't understand was why she didn't try to claw his face out when he told her who he was. Being a Lucifer, or at the very least half, he was blood related to the very people who had once enslaved her race, and many like it. The Lucifer family had been responsible for the forced servitude of dozens of races, many of them Yaokai. So it was a bit puzzling that she didn't distrust him at the mere mention of his family name. Not that he was complaining about that. No sir. He was happy that he didn't need to tie her to a tree or something similar. It would have been a real hassle otherwise. But again, confused as to why she was sitting in his lap willingly, and listening to his plans without any argument or rebuke. Senpai? Eh? Naruto stopped rubbing her head for a moment. What? Did you want me to repeat that last bit? She shook her head slowly. No. I was wondering why you wanted to. Her voice trailed off for a moment as if she were trying to find a way to put it into words that didn't sound so bad. But eventually she gave up and just said it. Why do you want to seduce my master? Well, let me put it this way. There are a lot of reasons. Like, to start off with, she's hot. Kaneko stiffened. Ecchi. Not ecchi. Ecchi is perverted. What I said was she was hot. That's a compliment, and not necessarily perverted. Although yes, I am a very ecchi person. Do you have a problem with that, Kaneko-chan? She hesitated, but relaxed as he resumed petting her. Now, as I was saying, she is really hot. But that only makes me interested in her physically. She's also a high devil and the heiress to a powerful family, which means she's worth going after. Seeing how her rank is the same as mine right now. Kaneko nodded. And that's not to mention my parents used to be really great friends with her brother. My godfather told me that Surzich's and my mom were childhood friends. Back before there was all that conflict with the old and new devils. Naruto paused as the girl in his lap abruptly laid back again his chest. He could feel her purring though his jacket. A smirk found its way onto his face, and he continued smoothing his hand through her hair, occasionally scratching behind her cat-like ears. So, that's it, she asked after a moment. No? In addition to her being attractive, the heiress of a good family, and the fact that making her fall for me would be really good politically, I can't let her marry that ass riser. She'd be stuck with him for the rest of her life, and since she's a pureblood devil. That's a really long time. He felt Kaneko nod her head in approval. Plus, I like her personality. You do? Yeah. I mean, she's not like my Rainer-chan. Rainer is a fallen angel of lust though. And Riaz is a devil princess, so there are certainly differences. Where Rainer-chan acts like a slut, sometimes Riaz is more, what's the term I'm looking for? Oh, that's it. She's more reserved. But I like her bossiness more for some reason. Reminds me a lot of my mom. Kinda cool since they both had red hair. Naruto paused. Did I mention I really like her deeds? Kaneko shifted in his lap so that he had better access to her ears and didn't answer his question, instead asking another one of her own. What about Riser? Well, that's the thing. This whole thing is based off getting pureblood children. But I figure that if I can get Riaz to fall for me, then I can mark her as my second mate. That would throw the mother of all wrenches into the wedding plans. Since I'm the heir of Lucifer, my mating mark is basically the magical equivalent of Riser putting a wedding ring on her finger, just more permanent. She nodded again. So you can help President be free. Yep. And you would be good to her. Naruto snorted. Of course I would. And Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze never goes back on his word. I'll treat her like the princess she is. Okay? He raised his eyebrow to sudden acceptance. Okay. I will help. You will. Kaneko closed her head. President is nice to me. She was always there for me when I needed someone. Now it's my turn to help. Naruto chuckled, messing her hair with one hand. That's what I like to hear. Come on, let's do some planning. Ashia's face had never been quite so red. Sure, she was becoming accustomed to embarrassment while in the company of Rainer and Naruto, but this was mortification on a whole new level. It was torture, just plain torture, but she couldn't stop reading. It started out with her returning to Naruto's house with Rainer. The older fallen had elected to take a shower, leaving her in the living room with Kalwiner and Middled. But apparently Middled had some kind of obsession with Rainer because she soon left the room. Ashi could only assume, going by Rainer's aggravated yelling, that it was to peep on her superior. Then Kalwiner decided that she was tired and left the room, intent on catching a few Zs. That was when Ashia saw the little orange book. At first she didn't think anything of it. Obviously it was a book belonging either to Naruto or to Kalwiner, since she saw the female fallen reading it. And it must have been good because she was giggling the whole time. Ashia couldn't help herself. She was bored and uneasy, and she felt that reading might allow her to relax a bit. So without any preconceived notions about the lay within, she grabbed the book and started reading. It started out really well. It was interesting with a quickly thickening plot, and she liked the main character. He seemed like a really stand-up guy, if somewhat over the top. 10 pages and she was happily engrossed in the book. Then things took a turn for the perverted. By the end of chapter 1 the main character was, but she dare not say it even within the confines of her own mind. And yet, neither could she drop the book. Her eyes scanned every word without her having anything to stop them. 1 chapter became 2, 2 became 3. And by the time Rainer came out of her extra long shower turned bath, Ashia's face was redder than a tomato, and she had an uncomfortable heat between her legs that she refused to acknowledge was there. So hot. Her fevered mind was assaulted by so many sexually explicit images that steam could all but be seen pouring out of her ears. Well, look what we have here. The little nun isn't quite as pure as we all thought. Ashia chucked the book at the voice, purely out of reflex, and it sailed past Rainer, who easily ducked, nailing Middleton in the face as the diminutive Fullen walked out of the bathroom looking battered but clean. It's not what it looks like. I didn't know what it was. Oh Lord, please forgive me. Ashia wailed and curled up on the couch away from Rainer. Please, oh please, I didn't mean to read it. Rainer chuckled and plopped down on the couch next to Ashia. Girl, you're really uptight, you know. Nuns like you need to loosen up a bit. She kicked her feet up on the low table by the couch and leaned back. You'll be a lot happier once you stop all that religious nonsense. God might be great and all that, but humans aren't meant to be pure. It's just your church that preaches purity in all things. But, Rainer-san, I may. The girl who needs a be-rented boyfriend to get over all the crap in her life. Rainer gestured to herself. See how relaxed I am. Once you accept that good and evil aren't black and white, you'll be less pent up. Trust me. You may want to be a nun, or whatever you were before, but it's overrated. This is coming from someone who used to have white wings. Purity is a pain in the ass. She pointed her hand off to the side and summoned a whip of light. Then she snapped in at Middle, who was just getting up with the book from before in her hands. The coiled cord of light energy wrapped around the book and Rainer gave it a good yank. Wah! The book sailed into Ashia's lap. The girl shrieked and tried to throw it away from her, but Rainer stopped her. Now, just read the damn thing. Reading a book, no matter how filled it is with smut, won't taint you. At least it won't, if you honestly don't have any interest in it. Rainer grinned at Ashia's helpless expression. Besides, you're excommunicated. What does it matter, if you like dirty novels? Rainer rolled her eyes and leaned back. It's not like you can fall. Ashia forced herself to consider the truth of Rainer's statements for a moment. True, reading a book couldn't hurt her, unless she chose to accept what she read as true, or changed her own actions because of it. Also true, she wasn't a nun anymore. In fact, she wasn't even officially part of the church. She's been excommunicated, so even if she believed in God, she wasn't compelled to go to church. In some places she wouldn't be welcome either. She could read the book, and she wouldn't be in trouble, either physically or spiritually. So, a long sigh escaped her, and she bit her lip. But did she want to read it? Now she knew what the innocuous little novel was about. Could she truly finish it? Ashia took a deep breath and picked the book up. Yes, she could read it. And she would. It would be a challenge for her. To see if she could handle the outside world without the support of the church. What kind of believer was she if she needed the church to survive? She still loved God. She could still live without being preached at or going to confession. Eyebrows knitting together in determination, Ashia opened the book the place she'd left off and started to read again, consciously trying to suppress the blush that returned to her cheeks. Off to the side, Rainer watched her, not even trying to hide her triumphant smirk. Yes, she corrupt this cute little nun yet. After all, a girl needs a hobby. Aya swallowed hard and drew in a deep breath. She quickly closed and locked her bedroom door, turning around to look at the small seal which lay upon her bed. It had been about an hour since she told Kiba to go out and start spreading rumors. It was easy enough. Kiba was the #1 pretty boy in school. All he had to do was act slightly interested in one of the more gullible girls. Then he'd let it slip that something was weighing on his mind. Of course, the first thing that any fangirl would do would be to try and comfort the charming object of her affections. Then Kiba would admit it had something to do with her. This would alarm his chosen girl, making her think that Kiba had feelings for his club president. Kiba would deny it, saying that she had been acting strange for months, maybe even longer, and that it was starting to get worse. He would act worried, telling her that his club president was staring off into space and becoming slack in her duties. This would set off even larger alarms in the chosen girl's head. Save they would be of a completely different kind. She quickly compared her strange behavior as described by Kiba to her own. And what was the most logical thing that a love-struck hormonal teenage girl would think about the great lady of Kuo acting like a love-struck hormonal teenage girl? Aya smiled as she thought about it. Her brother thought it would be hard to fake having a relationship for so long. And yes, on the surface it seemed quite difficult, but once you looked underneath, well, it wasn't nearly as much trouble as it seemed. With Kiba being able to skillfully manipulate most of the female population, Kaneko as the skull mascot acting as a spy, and Akeno being another of the great ladies, she was in a fine position to make it seem like she'd been seeing someone for months. Yet there were a few problems. First was Sona. Rias needed Sona on board with this. It probably wouldn't be too hard, but just in case her friend didn't want to help out, Rias wanted to have some leverage over her. To that end, she was thinking of letting slip the identity of another possible peerage member. That way she would have a favor to call in with Sona. And second, the problem, which was far more problematic, was that her supposed secret lover wasn't here. If she were to fake being in a secret relationship, then she needed to have the supposed lover on hand to confer with. Rias really hoped that her brother found him soon. And for Satan's sake, she hoped he was better than Riser. She honestly didn't think her big brother would lead her astray, but one could never be sure. Which was why she was desperate to look through the information he'd left her. Letting out her breath, she approached the bed, slipping her shoes off as she did so. Once she reached the bed, he dropped down and picked up the seal. Apprehension washed over her. This was it. Once she opened this, there would be no going back. Not that she minded. Anything or anyone was better than marrying Riser. Rias raised her hand and let a small amount of her devil energy wash over the seal. Then she dropped it back down on the bed. The seal glowed dimly, then before her eyes the Gremory seal appeared over it. Then it flashed, and divulged its contents upon her bed. Rias blinked as she saw how much was stored inside the tiny pocket dimension, for out of it came no less than a dozen heavy-looking books, several discs, and 2 additional letters. She looked them over for a brief moment, then reached for the first letter. She opened it swiftly and scanned the first few sentences, her eyes flying open wide. Dear future daughter-in-law. Hello. I'm happy to be writing this letter to you, Rias. My name is Kushina Uzumaki, although if you're good at history then you know my clan name is actually Lucifer. Yes. I know, crazy right? Anyway, I've been good friends with your older brother since we were kids, and when I spoke with him about your situation we came to an understanding. My son is the heir to the house of Lucifer, and if uniquely suited to getting you out of your marriage to the Phoenix boy. You see, the heir of Lucifer is required to have 4 wives, yet allowed 5. The 4 wives are usually reserved for alliances within the devil community, while the 5th wife traditionally is the chosen lover of the heir. However, my son dislikes arranged marriages, and I have no doubt he wants to find women he cares for to fill those vacancies. Your brother and I wish you to be one of my son's wives because he is one of the few eligible young men in the underworld who is higher in status than Riser. Not only that, but if he chooses you as his mate, then there would be nothing Riser could do against you. The mark of the Uzumaki clan is permanent and would link the both of you, as if you were married. I know that this arrangement is still forcing you into marriage, but I can promise you that my son is not the same as Riser Phoenix. He is the very epitome of the devil. Cunning and intelligent, powerful and charismatic. I know he'll treat you well, and I'll kick his ass if he doesn't, Tebene. Since you wouldn't have time to really get to know him before all of this plays out, I decided to send you some of our picture books and home videos. Feel free to glance through them and get a good look at him. Also, the videos I included are from his 10th birthday and our last Halloween. That last thing before I forget. Naruto is only half devil. He's part vampire and human as well on his father's side, but because of a rule laid down by the original Lucifer, he is still considered a full-blooded heir. So if you see him biting anyone in the videos, don't panic. Your future mother-in-law, Kushina Uzumaki. Rias dropped the letter and leaned back against her bedpost, her mind blown. Uzumaki, the human name for the honorable house of Lucifer. She'd never known, or at least she'd forgotten about it. To think that the one who her brother had found to break her contract with Riser was from the greatest devil family in history. If it was true, which it had to be at this point, then she would be married into the most powerful house in existence. Not only that, but she could see why her brother would agree to this. The House of Gremory and the House of Lucifer had once been relatively close before the old devil faction had risen against the new devils. Of course her brother, and even her father and mother, if they found out about it, would support this. It would bring the houses together again. Rias licked her lips, finding that they were suddenly very dry. This was crazy. Rias knew that there were a variety of reasons why her parents had married her off to Riser, not just having pure-blood children. The main reasons for the marriage were economical and political if everyone was honest about their intentions. The House of Phoenix was the only viable source for Phoenix Tears, a legendary substance that had traditionally been taken from an actual phoenix by the name of Lumariver. They were so valuable that a dozen of them were worth a dragon's weight in gold. A single tear was enough to heal even mortal wounds instantly. And by joining their 2 houses, the Gremory would gain access to this commodity free, or at a greatly reduced price. Also, Lord Phoenix, the father of Riser, was a member of the Elder Council. The council which was in charge of deciding internal affairs in the underworld and negotiating between clans. If their 2 houses were allied by marriage, her own father would gain enormous leeway since the Baal, Citri, and several other pure-blood clans were already in his political camp. Both were very good reasons to join their 2 families. However, there was the not-so-small issue of the contract being made long before she knew about it. Her father had started to discuss the arrangement with the Lord and Lady Phoenix when she wasn't even a toddler. And by the time she was 6 years old, it was set in stone. Of course, Riser was several years older than her despite looking around 20, so her father should have known that Riser was an arrogant, pompous, perverted, egomaniacal asshole. Her dear old dad hadn't even mentioned the arrangement to her until 6 months or so ago. But then again, it was this very thing that might allow her to get out of it. If she could spread the rumor that she'd been seeing the heir to the house of Lucifer, keeping in mind that she didn't even know who he was yet, and managed to fake having been doing so for longer than she knew of the engagement to Riser, then she might just be able to break free of this wretched deal. From a certain point of view, it was a long shot. If her brother and his friend didn't find him in time, then she would be up shit creek without a paddle or a boat. Yet the chance of freedom was more than worth weaving a deception of any size. And so what, if she was tricking her father and mother? They were the ones who had done this to her without her consent. It was their fault. Hell yes, she'd spread the rumor she'd been in a secret relationship. Damn straight she'd lie about what she'd been doing the last 6 or 7 months. Would she marry the heir of Lucifer? If it meant leaving Riser waiting at the altar for a bride that would never come, she'd do it, and she'd do it with a smile on her face. She didn't know anyone whom she found more distasteful than Riser. Not a single person. The heir of Lucifer. How bad could he be? Her brother had never intentionally put her in a bad position, not in any way. Sure, he was a bit clingy and acted childish sometimes, but he was still her big brother. He still looked out for her. He knew how much she despised Riser. Point in fact, he tried to get the contract dissolved once already, even though the Elder Council had denied him. Now he'd come up with one last-ditch resort to get her out of marrying that bastard, and she was going to do whatever it took to make it happen. Reyes nodded to herself and leaned forward for the second letter. My little sis. I sincerely hope that you're figuring out ways to make our little subterfuge work as you're reading this. For now, I'm going to give you the bare minimum of information. Then you can decide how you want to do things on your end. Originally, you were going to be married to Riser quite soon. The wedding date was never precisely specified, but it was going to be within the next few weeks for sure. However, I managed to buy us some time. Don't ask me how. It's more than my life is worth to tell you, and Grafia would murder me if I did. Anyway, suffice to say, something unfortunate befell the Phoenix estate, forcing a change in venue. Basically, you had 2 weeks or so guaranteed. Now you have an additional 3 weeks of time. I was able to work my schedule to be so tight that I won't have a single day open until 5 weeks from now. And of course, father would not hear of me being absent at your wedding, so he's decided to delay the wedding until I can be there in person. Thankfully, he wasn't suspicious of my suddenly cramped schedule, and merely saw it as me taking my duties seriously. Anyway, I'd just like you to know a few other things. First and foremost is, in no uncertain terms, how you must play your cards. As you know, this arrangement has been set in stone since you were a little girl barely up to my waist. And as abhorrent as I find it, that's how we devils do things sometimes. Additionally, because of the many and honestly beneficial reasons for your marriage to Riser, there is only one way to pull this off without dire consequences. You have to pretend that you were already involved with someone for longer than you've known about the engagement. And not just dating either. There has to be some evidence that you've been seeing someone seriously since at least 7 months ago. Otherwise, you will be accused of annulling the contract by breaking your premarital vows, something that would not be good for either you or the family's reputation. Second, you need to be able to act as though you're honestly, hopelessly in love with the young man we've chosen. If you aren't able to pull that off, then Riser will call bullshit before you can blink. And we both know what would happen if that occurred in the middle of a wedding reception. It would go over slightly better than having an angel there to bless the union. Third, and this is important, Kushina and I require 1 full week to find your beloved and a further 3 days to use the spell that will allow us to teleport him to you. That means you have 8 days before he arrives. Get planning, because the time will fly faster than you can imagine. And last but certainly not least, once your new fiancé is with you and the two of you have everything worked out, then you'll need to plan out how you want to reveal this to everyone. Unfortunately, I think it would be best if I am left in the dark on this part, as it will help with believability. I'll leave the rest to your ears. Hope for the best. P.S. Kushina gave me this picture to give to you. This is your new fiancé. Reyes let out a long breath as she finished reading. Well, no time like the present. She pushed a little devil energy into the seal at the bottom of the letter, and smirked as a small 3x6 picture fell into her lap. Reyes then dropped her brother's letter and picked the picture up, flipping it over to look at the face of her soon-to-be secret lover. Her heart skipped a beat. Blonde hair like spun gold, eyes as blue as glacial ice, tan skin, and whiskers. Reyes found herself looking at none other than Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the young man who'd arrived at her school, and captured the hearts of a large part of the school, the one she'd been considering as a peerage member, not even a few hours ago. He was a devil. And not just any devil. The heir to the house of Lucifer, and the one her brother had chosen to replace Riser. She sat perfectly still for several long minutes, almost unable to conceive of it. He'd been right there, under her nose the entire time, and she had only the faintest clue he was special. If he wasn't as handsome as he was, then she might not have taken notice of him. That in and of itself was shocking. How could someone of literally royal pedigree slip past her? She was supposed to be in charge of this town. However, this was also almost ridiculously lucky. As in insanely fortunate. Was it believable? No, it wasn't. But she wouldn't let this opportunity escape her. Not a chance in hell. Ryuz dropped the picture and summoned her familiar. The small cyclopean bat popped into existence beside her with a screech. "Find me, Kaneko." Her familiar nodded and flew out the window in search of her Urk. Knock knock. Had turning an alarm, Ryuz saw the door to her room open a crack. "Yes. Who is it?" "President, I'm back." Ryuz perked up at the sound of her Urk's voice. "Oh. I just sent my familiar to look for you. Come in here, Kaneko. I have something I need you to do." Her bedroom door opened and Kaneko walked into the room. Immediately Ryuz noticed something off about her. Kaneko's usual tidy hair looked to have been messed up, and then brushed hastily back into place without success. And not only that, but her pallid cheeks held a slightly darker hue than usual. "Kaneko." The small Nekashu shuffled her feet. Naruto-senpai caught me when I was trying to observe him." Ryuz blinked. Well, she would have been surprised to hear that 10 minutes ago. But right now she could only nod inwardly. Of course he'd caught her. She'd be amazed if he hadn't. If the guy could hide here for so long without her noticing, then he had the skill to pick up on Kaneko watching him. The question remained, how had he reacted to being spied upon? She knew about the arrangement, but he couldn't. For all she knew, he might react violently to someone invading his business. And what did he do? Kaneko fidgeted. "He wants to meet you." Ryuz smiled. "Interesting. I want to meet him too, seeing how I recently learned something very interesting about him." "What's that?" "My brother apparently met his mother. He's the heir to the house of Lucifer, and they want me to marry him instead of Riser." "What?" Kaneko suddenly exploded in a burst of smoke. Ryuz leapt back as the white plume obscured everything for a few seconds. Then it dispersed, leaving someone who was not Kaneko standing in the room. Ryuz's eyes were wide as she recognized none other than Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the heir of Lucifer. He was staring at her, jaw hanging loose in astonishment. "That didn't work, senpai." Ryuz glanced behind Naruto where Kaneko had just walked into the room. Naruto whipped around. "Well, how was I supposed to know that mom went and arranged something without telling me? I can't keep a hand up when my chakra fluctuates." Ryuz looked between them. Her mind was spinning wildly with this abrupt change in plans. How is it that Naruto was here now? How did he disguise himself as Kaneko? And more importantly, why was he here? Now, as happy as I am for the both of you to be here at such a convenient time, what in Satan's name is going on here? The blonde devil hybrid pulled a hand through his hair. "Damn, this is kinda awkward. Kaneko-chan tried to sneak up on me while I was shopping, and I dragged her off into the forest to deal with her. But we ended up deciding to work together since we had some of the same goals. She wants to get you out of your problem with Riser." "So, what were you going to do exactly?" Ryuz asked. She was unsure of whether his intentions were hostile or not. His attempt to fool her wasn't casting this in the best light. The blonde glanced at Kaneko, then back to her. "Well." Kaneko shrugged. "Naruto-senpai wanted to seduce you and mark you with his clan's mating mark. It would have rendered your engagement with Riser null and void." Naruto grimaced. Yeah, there wasn't a really good way to say it. He looked away from her, not knowing what else to add. His plans certainly hadn't panned out the way he wanted. "So what now, Ryuz? You know who I am. The secret is out in the open now." "I hope not." Ryuz crossed her arm and frowned. "It's going to take more than just marking me to get me out of marrying that jackass my parents set me up with." "Wait, what?" Ryuz sighed. "You heard what I said." "Then?" Naruto frowned. "You're actually okay with what I was planning?" "Actually, yes. If it means I can go to the wedding reception and flip my fiancé off then walk away." "Yes. If that's the case, then I fully intend to go along with it." "Ah, cool. My brother has a plan to get me out of marrying Riser. I'd rather play Russian roulette with a holy gun than be stuck with him for the rest of my life." Ryuz stood and walked over to him. Her blue-green eyes met his cool blue orbs. "So, you're my only other option." "That's fine with me." Naruto watched her carefully for a few seconds. "That's unexpected, but it sure makes things easy. If you're okay with it, then that saves a lot of time, doesn't it?" "Yes. However, right now would be a bad time for you to be found here. I need you to be anonymous a while longer." She gestured to the bed. "Come on. I need to explain everything my brother needs us to do for this to work." "Fair enough. What does the old usurper need?" he asked, smirking as he walked over and jumped on the bed. She raised an eyebrow as she too fell on the bed opposite to him. "Really? Usurper? That's my brother you're talking about." "Well, I am the heir to Lucifer. From a certain point of view, the head of the Bale clan and your brother are both usurping my rightful throne. Not that I mind or anything. I was just saying." Naruto chuckled at her crestfallen expression and glanced over the bed. "So what's all this to? Please tell me that's not my mom's photo album." Her eyes were drawn to one of the thick books that Naruto was reaching for. Photo album of what? Nothing. He lunged for it, only for her to snatch it from under his nose. Nope, your mother sent these so I could get to know you. After all, we need to be able to pull off 7 months of secret infatuation. I have to know all your cute embarrassing little secrets. Naruto glared at her. I never knew you were the cruel great lady of Kuo Academy. The other students must have forgotten to mention that part. Cruel? No, that's Akeno. She's the sadist. I'm as nice can be. Rias giggled as she opened the book, her gaze alighting on what could only be a picture of Naruto. He looked about for. Oh, this is UHM. Those whisker marks must be a birthmark. And your eyes. They're a different color. He groaned, covering his eyes with one hand. This is not how I imagined our first real meeting would go. She turned the first page. And what did you think would happen? Oh, I don't know. I thought I'd come in disguised as Kaneko-chan, get as much information on you as I could personally, and then seduce you with my devilish charm. You know, the bare basics, having you wrapped around my finger and all the good things that come with a successful seduction. Ryuz rolled her eyes as Kaneko walked up to her. Hey Kaneko, I need you to do something for me. Yes, President. Go set up a meeting with Sona for tomorrow morning, would you? I need to make sure she's on the same page as us now that Naruto is here, and I actually know who he is. Naruto grinned. Might just let me take care of that. What? Ryuz asked. You've already revealed yourself to Sona. Yeah, shortly after I arrived here there was a little incident and I had to show myself. She's agreed not to tell anyone about me. I'm sure I can get her to help us with this little deceit. He smirked at Kaneko and patted his lap. Come on. I know what you want. The diminutive girl blushed but nodded, crawling onto the bed and depositing herself in his lap. Naruto's grin widened and he rubbed a hand over her head, rubbing between her suddenly exposed ears. He eyed Ryuz as she stared dumbfounded at her work. Her expression was comical. Ryuz. Don't look so surprised. I'm a chakra user just like Kaneko-chan here. She's drawn to the warm feel of my chakra, the petting is just a perk. But what? Ryuz screwed her face up into a mock-angry face. But she doesn't even do that with me. She only just met you. Like I said, she's drawn to my chakra. He paused, his face becoming pensive, or is it my overwhelmingly magnetic personality and damning good looks? Who can say? She face-palmed. Well, you're just as obsessed with yourself as Riser, but at least you don't seem like a perverted sick asshole. Naruto drew himself up, striking a regal pose, or at least as regal a pose as he could strike while sitting on a bed with a girl on his lap. I'll have you know I am a pervert. Not as big as him certainly, but I have an appreciation for the female form. Also the term is not sick. It's twisted. Sick makes it sound like there's a cure. As for being an asshole, well, one person's asshole is another person's glory hole. He hesitated. Sorry, wrong thing. That was my godfather's favorite. Ryuz tried to keep a straight face and failed. Her lips split into a smile, and she giggled. For the air of Lucifer, you act more like a clown than a prince. What? I'm only trying to make a good impression. Or a bad impression. Really, at this point I'm not sure which. Anyway, as I was trying to say, I'm an asshole to some and a friend to others. Really depends on who you are. And for me, she asked hesitantly. Naruto detected a tremor in her voice. He felt his smile falter. For you? Well, to be honest, you started out as just a goal for me. I saw how beautiful you were. She blushed. And so tasty looking. He chuckled. I wanted to have you. It was pretty selfish now that I think about it. But after watching you for a while that changed. I saw how much you care for your peerage and how you got along with Sona and her peerage. I kind of felt bad about it afterwards. And now? He sighed. I like you, Ryuz-chan. As far as choosing a mate goes, you're the perfect choice. You're beautiful, sexy, smart, a little bossy, and caring. All things I like. You're also from a prominent house, one that used to be connected to mine. You're even related to the Bale clan on your mother's side. The things I didn't like about you are circumstantial. Ryuz tilted her head, frowning. And what do you dislike about me, if I may ask? She leaned forward. Is it something I could change? Well, yeah. I dislike the fact that you're letting other people boss you around in your life. And I hate that you didn't put your family in its place when they forced you to get engaged to Riser. He smiled. I think that people should stick up for themselves. Ryuz nodded. So you would like me more if I was willing to break this contract off regardless of the consequences? Isn't that basically what we're going to be doing? He asked with a raised eyebrow. You and me, bringing the great houses of Lucifer and Gremory together, while leaving the Phoenix out in the cold. I guess so, but the whole point of my brother choosing you to be my husband instead of Riser is to have me married to someone I don't hate without disgracing my house. You know, by going back on a deal that was made more than a decade ago. He huffed. Well, when you put it that way, it does put your family in a rather bad light. Yes. Yes, it does. Ryuz drew in a deep breath and let it out, steadying herself. I hate Riser. If I had my way, I would go to one of the local churches in town to get a silver spoon blessed, and then use it to cut his heart out. Ouch. However, she continued, that wouldn't kill him, and being who he is, he's never experienced pain that he couldn't tolerate. Also, if I force the issue and dissolve the contract, it will ruin my family's reputation with the pureblood devil houses. My rebellion against my father would be political suicide for my house, since I'm the heir. No one would make any important agreements with a house that can't honor a simple arranged marriage. Naruto didn't like that, but he knew it was true. He leaned back from her, still absently rubbing Kaneko's head. So how do we arrange this without fucking up your family's reputation? Down to the important business then. Yeah, down to business. Aya smiled, glad they were getting somewhere. My father only just informed me about the arrangement with Riser 6 months ago. He was obviously worried about my reaction, which was why it took him so long to tell me. Regardless, that means that we have a certain window of time to work with. And where do I come in? Simply this. We need to fake being lovers for longer than I've known of the betrothal. I can do it easily enough on my end. Your side is the problem. He grunted. 7 months. That's the minimum. Longer would be better. Give me a little while to think, Ryuz-chan. Naruto frowned and took a long minute to consider it. On his side of the issue there was a big problem. He hadn't left the castle before a month ago. And there were plenty of people who knew it. Riz of them knew, his mother knew. Many of the family's servants knew. Granted, he wouldn't have to worry about his mother or the servants, but his hated uncle on the other hand. He was a problem. Naruto's frown deepened. He could easily get around the time issue. He'd been able to use Hiration's base formula for years. His father taught it to him when he turned 14. So he could easily say he'd been teleporting to Sirius for as long as they wanted. Plus his clones and disguising abilities would be able to explain almost any conflicting stories away. The problem would be figuring out how and when they actually met. Naruto, have you figured something out? Yeah. I think I can cover most of it, provided I can get word to my mom on keeping a particular relative of mine quiet. However, we need to decide where we first met. Ryuz smirked. I have the perfect idea. There is a festival that is held in the underworld every year. Millions of devils go every time it's held. We can say we met there last year. Which festival are you talking about? What? You've never heard of Satan Day? He shook his head. I've heard of it, but never been. It's to celebrate the day the new Satans replace the old Satans. Yep, held on the 16th of March. That would be 13 months ago. I think that's more than enough time to say we met, got to know each other, and had been dating. Ryuz hummed thoughtfully. That's 7 months before I heard of the engagement. Do you think you can handle that kind of gap? I know an advanced teleportation technique that allows me to instantly teleport to anything I've marked beforehand. It folds space and time, allowing me to bypass magical barriers without causing alarms. It also uses chakras, so only powerful yokai would sense it being used. So yeah, I think I can do 13 months. And no one knows about it. Naruto shrugged. A few people know, but none who would speak out against the engagement. And I'm one of only 2 people alive who can use it. Unless you can use my unique type of chakra, it's impossible to replicate too. That's amazing, so theoretically you could have been visiting me constantly whenever you wished without being caught. Pretty much. And with my vampire abilities your own peerage wouldn't have known. He smirked down at Kaneko. Except for this one that is. But as you can see, she can't resist my chakra or the pleasure of my skilled fingers, so she isn't much of a threat. Kaneko's blush deepened, and her ears drooped. Senpai, not nice. He rubbed harder, earning a small purr. Oh, I mean then. I guess I'd better stop messing up your hair then. That's just the worst, isn't it? She nodded, squirming under his attention as he trickled a little of his potent chakra into her. Senpai. His grin was feral as he raked his fingers through her scalp, causing her to arch back into his chest, a soft mule escaping her lips. Ryuz watched in fascination as Naruto leaned down and nibbled the tip of Kaneko's ear. Her rook's eyes went wide. And then fluttered close, a small line of drool running down her chin. Ryuz coughed loudly. Ahem, Naruto, what exactly are you doing to my rook? HM? He glanced up, his eyes seeming to flash red for an instant. What? She pointed at Kaneko's flushed face. That. Naruto blinked and looked down as well. Oh crap. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry, my instincts were taking over. Give me a sec. He pinched the back of Kaneko's neck, knocking her out. Then he lifted her up and set her off to the side on the bed. Ryuz deadpanned. Explain please. What do you mean by instincts? He held up his hands in a placating gesture. Hey, remember I'm not just a devil. I'm also human and vampire. I've got the worst of all 3 worlds. On my devil side I have inherent indulgence issues when it comes to sin. On my human side makes me even more vulnerable. And at the same time I have to worry about my vampire instincts. Which, let me tell you, can get pretty strong, especially when I haven't fed in a while. She frowned. So there are 2 things I want to know now. Sure. Go ahead. First, how long has it been since you had blood, and second, how is it that you can be the heir of Lucifer if you're only half devil? Well, to start with, The reason I'm the heir of Lucifer, even though my whole house is kind of fixated on how much better the old devils and purebloods are than everyone else, is because of the original Lucifer. You tell? I thought the original Lucifer was supposed to be the world's biggest asshole. He blinked. No offense, but the reason he was the leader of the devils was because he was the strongest, not the nicest. Ryu smiled hesitantly, not sure if dissing his ancestors would anger Naruto. None taken. Naruto smiled. And you're right. A lot of my family is obsessed with purity, which is kind of funny since the angels are so fixated on the same thing. Anyway, the original Lucifer set down a law within the house that said his power would not be inherited directly by his heirs in equal amount. Basically, he only wanted those descendants who were worthy to gain his power. Thus the heir to the house has always been whoever was born with the largest portion of our ancestors' power. Technically my uncle Rizavam is head of the family, but he has less than 10% of Lucifer's power. My mother has 30, and I have 50. Thus since I have the most anyone was ever born with, I am the heir, regardless of the purity of my blood, or how closely I'm related to the family's main bloodline. Ryuz blinked in astonishment. It wasn't every day that you found out the biggest purest family in devil history allowed their heir to be of any descent, as long as he inherited the family power. It almost came as a slap in the face for her, someone who'd been taught that such things simply didn't happen in the old devil faction. As for how long it's been since I fed, this morning was the last time, but I didn't have very much. To be blunt, I'm thirsty and my instincts are starting to guide my actions just a bit too much. Her lips made an O of understanding. Naruto chuckled uneasily as he found his eyes being drawn to her throat. Not that I can't usually control myself when it comes down to it. The thing is that I've kind of been gorging myself on blood recently, and my body has adapted to the higher intake. So when I go back to a normal amount of blood for the day, it feels like I'm starving anyway. Ryuz shifted, blushing slightly. She just noticed that he was no longer looking at her eyes, and his own were now a deep crimson. He licked his lips. She shivered. You don't want to, you know. He nodded once. Right now? Naruto's eyes flicked up to meet hers. Ryuz, to be honest, your scent is starting to get to me. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you willing to let me bite you right now? Because if you aren't, then I'll leave and come back later. Ryuz shook her head quickly. No, I mean you can do it, if you need to. Are you sure? He leaned forward, licking his lips. I don't know if I'll be able to hold back once I start. I'm sure. You're part vampire, no one will buy that we're lovers if I won't let you bite me. She held still as Naruto brushed the videos and picture books aside. But, yes, he growled. I've never let anyone close to me like this except Ikeno, please be gentle. Naruto didn't answer as he crawled across the bed to her, but she could see him changing. His skin seemed to pale ever so slightly, just barely enough for her keen eyes to notice. His fangs lengthened, poking out well past his lip. And last of all, his fingernails turned into claws. She swallowed hard and then gasped as he reached out and pulled her forward. Naruto, he silenced her, holding one claw to her lips, and then bowed his head, drinking in her scent. Ryuz felt caught between fear and arousal. On one hand she was scared of being bitten, while on the other Naruto's actions were turning her on. Blood-red eyes rose to meet hers as Naruto's self-control neared the snapping point. I'll try. And then his fangs were scratching across her skin. Her breath caught in her throat as they stopped just over her artery and sank in. Naruto couldn't stop himself. His instincts took over and he drank deeply. His hands found her wrists, trapping them above her head even as he pushed her down into the bed under him. Her blood was amazing. His own blood boiled at the taste, so rich and savory. It was like nothing he'd ever dreamed of. It wasn't sweet like Reina or Hinata, Ryuz was different. A flavor that overwhelmed his taste buds, beyond accurate description. He couldn't get enough. He wanted more. Ryuz arched into him, gasping as his fangs sank deeper into her. He barely noticed. All he could think about was how she tasted. He kept drinking, he didn't stop or even slow down. When her groans became whimpers, he didn't pause when she started moaning his name, urging he bite harder. All understanding of what happened around them was lost as he drowned himself in her flesh. The room was forgotten, time was lost, and their plans simply disappeared from his thoughts. Naruto didn't rightly know at what point he released her wrists, or when the biting became kissing, or when she started to kiss him back. He couldn't remember how her shirt was ripped open or when she'd gotten his pants off. What he did recall was Ryuz panting his name. He definitely remembered how her nails felt, scratching across his broad back and the way the sweat beaded on her creamy skin trailing down onto the sheets beneath them. And he remembered perfectly how it felt to bite into the soft flesh of her shoulder, Ryuz screaming his name as he marked her as his. He'd never forget that. Never. And, if she hadn't been too exhausted to move, Ryuz would have agreed. As it was, she did the best she could to snuggle into his side, letting her head rest on his chest. Her eyes fluttered for mere seconds before darkness claimed her. Naruto remained awake only a few moments longer than her, just barely enough time to use his vampire powers to seal off the room from anyone entering. Then he wrapped an arm around the nude form of his beautiful mate and succumbed to sleep. His last thought before he fell was that he wouldn't let anyone take Rias away from him, no one and nothing. He makes sure of that. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.